This is Spiritual Mamas Podcast. We're a couple of mamas out here just trying to raise kids, make it through a work day, and navigate mental health issues, all while going through a spiritual awakening. And we thought we'd take you with us. So grab your favorite cozy drink and let's chat.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Aericka.
And I'm Kim.
Welcome back to Spiritual Mamas Podcast.
Yes, welcome.
Glad to have you back.
How you doing today, Aericka?
Okay. I think it's interesting that when I got here, you had cleansed your room, and which we don't normally really do.
Yeah.
And I had the thought before I got here that I needed to bring Palo Santo because I needed to cleanse something.
Yep.
So
we were on the same wavelength there for sure.
100%. Just kind of goes to show like our little your connection that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I mean, Thanksgiving was a thing. I went back to Ohio where my parents live and had Thanksgiving there. I got to see two of my siblings, so that was good.
Nice.
So, yeah. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm a little tired, but nothing wild or out of the ordinary. And yeah, same. I mean, I didn't travel far for Thanksgiving. I just went to a couple family members' houses and got to see people and eat good food, and that's it. Now we're here.
Awesome. Yeah, I needed this, I think, this week. I just felt kind of off earlier in the week as well. It's just kind of a weird thing. So
I don't always, and I know we talked about this before, like the astrology piece of things and how we don't know that much about it. But I don't always pay attention either. But I've been super mindful this week because Mercury's in retrograde. And
yeah.
So every conversation I've been having, I'm like, oh, do I need to get into this or can this wait?
I should have remembered that when I got into it with someone this weekend, but did not. But that's okay. All right. Well, yeah. So happy to be back. Happy to be doing this. So today we're talking about meditation.
Yes.
And this one I was struggling with because it's so big. There is not a single person that teaches an intuition or anything spiritual like that does not recommend meditation as part of your practice.
Yeah.
There is not a mental health therapist that doesn't recommend meditation. And I was like, okay, do we go sciencey? Do we just limit this to raising your vibration? Like, how is I gonna do this one? So because I really like meditation. And I didn't always, though.
Yeah.
Did not always.
I'm interested to know, your process on how you got to where you are. I love the idea of meditation. I wish I was doing it more. And I sometimes just struggle to connect with it. So
yeah.
But it is something that can be so important. And from a mental health standpoint, when I talk with people about meditation, which I do, I always highlight, it doesn't have to look one type of way. You don't have to be like a monk, on a mountaintop with, nothing but gongs going on around you to
which would
meditate.
Be nice,
it would be, but we don't all get there.
Yeah.
So, I do recognize that there's differences that can happen in it. So let's unpack it.
Yeah. So I think we'll start a little sciencey and then we'll kind of get into kind of how my journey went. All right. So sorry about the background noise. If anyone can hear that.
Yeah.
So meditation is the practice of training your mind to focus on one thing at a time and to be fully present in the moment. And the idea is that people who meditate often will report quietness, the quietness of the constant chatter in their brain. And it kind of goes back to this, how we had talked about the different waves, like the delta wave, the theta wave, the beta wave. I think you had said that beta wave is kind of our natural waking state.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So we're often so driven in that beta stage, and it's kind of the like go, 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 think, do, do, do.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens whenever you meditate is that we're able to access those delta waves, which is the slowest brain wave, which
Mm-hmm.
typically whenever you're sleeping you get that one. And then theta wave, which also is a slow brain wave
Mm-hmm.
that increases when we're kind of in that intermittent.
Yeah, in between the sleep and wake state.
Yeah. So, and that's where we've talked before, is that you want to be in, because that's where you can start to access the intuition portion of things.
Right.
And you can be kind of more in tune to other
levels
planes.
of consciousness.
Yeah, other level of consciousness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So part of what happens is that it can change the brain structure whenever you meditate.
Yes.
Which is very interesting. So it's associated with change in brain areas related to focus, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. And what it does, I'm trying to think. I think I heard that people who have anxiety and depression have a thinner prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
Which is it's like decision making and attention and impulse control. And they have thicker the one in the back, the hippocampus, or amygdala, one or the other. And then whenever you meditate and start accessing that more spiritual, that prefrontal cortex actually like gets bigger. And it's almost like a protective mechanism. Like the spirituality and the meditation helps protect that prefrontal cortex. So you're not as like go and impulsive and all of that sort of stuff.
It's amazing how the brain can do that. And I mean, for the most part, barring, like severe deterioration or damage to the brain, you can learn to restructure parts of the brain like throughout time. You don't it doesn't have to be when you're like 10 years old and still developing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another wave a brain wave that we can access is gamma waves. And those are found to increase during mindfulness and loving kindness meditation, and they're associated with a heightened awareness and empathy. It helps with that rumination, with that go, and it quiets down the mind, so you could start to kind of unpack what it is that's you're thinking, and look at it from a less judgmental type of lens. So then you can kind of start analyzing it without judgment.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing that we do so automatically. And I mean, even when it's just stepping out of that for a moment, when you're thinking of like, oh, when I'm feeling happy, you're automatically assigning an expectation to that feeling. If I'm feeling sad, that means something.
Right.
So to look at how you're experiencing life, having emotion or thought or interaction without judgment can be so beneficial. It gives you so much insight. It gives you clarity. It lets you know, what might need to come next sometimes, or that a situation isn't as impactful or doesn't need to be as impactful as you may have assigned it to be.
And it takes out some of like the bodily reaction. So it's just the mind reaction, not the body reaction to it. Which again, because the body can actually like cloud your judgment because it's going to that like possibly negative state or even happy state. And it can cloud your judgment because of that.
I see that with anxiety often, personally, because I experience anxiety, but also in other people. I talk about this in the sense of like, if a person with anxiety experiences upset stomach every time they're anxious, if they get sick, like have the flu and have an upset stomach, they may automatically become anxious because they've associated those things.
Yep, absolutely. I've seen that.
So the way that our body reacts to things can bring up an experience or a thought or emotion that may not necessarily need to be there.
Exactly. And that kind of leads us to it. Meditation can release key neurochemicals such as dopamine, serotonin, and cortisol, which I'm sure if anyone has been on TikTok, they all talk about freaking dopamine.
Yep.
And what that does is when you increase dopamine, it can enhance your mood and motivation. And then when serotonin is boosted, it can also contribute to feelings of well-being. And then cortisol, when it's high, you feel badly. You have inflammation, you have anxiety, you can't sleep. It's not good. When you have high levels of cortisol, it can damage a lot of different things. So it can actually bring down that cortisol level.
It's amazing how something like that can happen, where it will help you to release the good chemicals that help you feel good and experience things positively, and limit the negative chemicals.
Yeah. It does like both. So it's really cool. Neuroplasticity. I feel like that's a newer term. Not newer as in like 5 years, but newer like maybe 15 years. Maybe just because that's when I noticed it. But it's kind of like your ability to switch gears easily, flow from state to state, from situation to situation, how the chemicals are released and stuff like that. So you want your brain to have higher neuroplasticity because you want to be able to react to situations appropriately and easily and all those type of things. So meditation can also increase neuroplasticity by enhancing the ability and resilience, enhancing adaptability and resilience. And it particularly helps how the brain manages stress and emotional regulations over time. So by all of those things, all together, it can it fosters mental clarity, emotional balance, and an enhanced sense of well-being. So there's actually been a lot of studies on meditation. Most of the studies I found were for like mental health type things. Not as much in the spiritual, but there were some. So
have you seen lots of studies on how it can affect your medical health?
Yes, that is a newer study. But there have been quite a bit of evidence that shows, maybe not necessarily by itself, but in conjunction with other modalities, that it can really affect how your body reacts to illness, how it heals. Again, decreasing that inflammation is going to help your ability to heal.
Yeah.
So
I would imagine so, especially with the effect that it can have on your brain, neuroplasticity, the chemicals, that it can also impact how your body responds to maybe certain stressors or illnesses.
So it also kind of, in the space of more spirituality and intuition and stuff like that, it, again, I think I said this already, but it brings you back to where you could hear those more smaller details. You're in that in-between state, so you can maybe hear those downloads. I call them hits, those hits, a little bit easier. And then you can also process those a little bit easier.
Yes.
So in summary, meditation works through repeated practice of focusing attention, relaxing the body, and cultivating awareness. So what do you do for meditation?
Yes.
So typically the idea is that you're focusing on something specific, one thing, so that the rest of the brain, the rest of the chatter falls away. And it depends on how you want to do this. And it depends on why you're doing it. And what kind of mechanisms you're using to do it. And I think typically we just think of like those people sitting in like the, in the chair, just like, with their eyes closed, just thinking thoughts, in dead silence and in darkness. And that is definitely not the case all the time. I mean, it can be. But there's also things like movement meditation. It is where you're doing like yoga or you're doing tai chi or even walking can be very meditative if you're just kind of focusing on that movement, focusing on that, like the nature or whatever it is that you're doing. And how that works is when you're meditating and let's say your brain starts to like wander, you start thinking about the dishes. The idea is to then come back to that focus that you were focusing on to begin with. So then it kind of does like chunk and comes back to where it was, which is how that neuroplasticity happens, because you're teaching it to come back to something.
Right.
That it can come back to something.
Okay. So being able to switch from one thing to another purposefully and intentionally, not like being distracted by something, can help with increasing the neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can also do it. You could do it by drawing. You can do it through sound. You could do it through playing the piano, something, whatever it is that just kind of like focuses you in one position. And basically what I do, what I started with, sorry, I'm all over the place today. What I started with is using it for sleep.
Okay.
Because I was having all that anxiety and that depression and I wasn't sleeping. So I started using it for sleep. Prior to me trying to do that, I had tried to meditate many times and failed. Because I had that idea in my head that I needed to sit for 20 minutes to an hour and just not think of anything.
Yeah.
And I can't do that.
I would imagine, I mean, unless you are a trained like monk who's been doing this their whole lives, that most of us can't do that. That's a pretty impossible task.
Right. But I think that's how it's always kind of presented.
Yeah.
Is that, that's what it should look like. And I read, it's Jeff Patterson, the should have wrote this down. I do this every time. Oh my gosh, I'll come back to it. It's like right there. Anyway, he wrote a book about meditation, and he says, do it for 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, if your brain went 15 different directions, but you came back to it every time, like that mantra or whatever it is, that's good. That's good for you. You did something in that way. So I started it for sleep, and I would put on a YouTube and I would listen to a guided meditation. And that guided meditation is how I would like get my body to focus and calm down. And usually I wasn't necessarily thinking anything. It was more just like, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, just so I could relax and go to sleep. But that has definitely morphed over time. And it's been more recently that it's morphed to being something that I'm actually seeking to do as an active activity. And I think we talked, I think maybe the first or second one that was like, oh, meditating in the middle of the day is really hard.
Yeah.
It's not now for me.
Okay.
Which I find interesting. But I've been working at it.
Yeah.
So I still often use YouTube though. And I'll either do like a 10-minute, whatever I'm looking to do, 10, 15, 20. Am I looking for positivity? Am I looking for quieting the mind? Am I looking for, what am I looking for? And sometimes I will just put on kind of specific sounds.
Yeah.
Like specific videos I found that like really help. And I come up with my own thing I want to think about. So it might be a problem I'm having that I want more information about. It might be positivity, using it to raise my vibration, like just kind of working on that sort of thing. And I find that it has really, really, really helped me. I am much calmer. My brain is not going as fast, which is interesting. And I feel much more grounded.
Yeah.
And I've been able to kind of like come up with ideas. Like I was thinking about doing something and I wasn't really sure how to start this thing. I had the idea, but I wasn't sure what to do. So I meditated on that, like specifically like, how can I blah, blah, blah. And then just listening to the downloads, listening to the hits I was getting. And it was just kind of like, it was almost, you know, see like on TV with like they're thinking and like things are like coming in their visual field, like, like that's what it looked like. And like, I just kind of was able to bring it into like a list. And then when I got done, I wrote out the ideas. Yeah. And then looked at them and was like, oh, wow, that does make sense. Like, that's a good idea. But yeah, I really like it. I didn't think I ever would, but I definitely do.
Do you get like super specific every time, or is it like semi-specific depending on the situation?
It depends on the situation. If it's more just kind of like going for positivity, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna be positive and thinking about positive mantras, you know, like that's more of it, just to kind of quieten the mind and set the tone. But often it is specific. Okay. To a degree. Yeah. Like right now I've been really focusing on doing a daily what I want my life to look like. So I try to be as kind of specific as I can with that feeling and what that's going to look like and what I want. So that's pretty like it's specific but not specific, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm kind of shaping it as I'm thinking about it. Yeah. But yeah.
I find that and I know I've said this before, I don't do it as often as I would like, but when I do, there was a point in time when I needed to have guided meditations and I needed them to be directing me through every single step. Right. Yeah. So somebody needed to be speaking the whole time. Now I like to have guided meditations, and I'm putting air quotes, where they may like give you a directive in the start and then just leave it open. Yeah. And there's just like maybe some calming sound or something in the background. Right. And when I do meditate, I typically will, go to YouTube, but I'll pick like whatever it is that I'm trying to focus on and do like a 20-minute version and just see how far I can get. And I'm, depending on where I start, like how my outlook is that day, I can get to like 10 or 15 minutes before my mind starts like, all right, I'm over this. And
yeah, I think kind of the most I've done is like 30 minutes. And that was like on something specific. Also, I tend to have visions whenever I meditate, especially if I don't have something that I'm specifically looking for. Yeah. Or I might just say like, I want to be less stressed about this situation. And I've had some pretty interesting things happen. And I talk about this with some people sometimes about like visions and like how do you know it's not your imagination? Yeah. And to me, it's like, I don't think I can think these things up. Like, I'm not thinking this. Why would this particular thing? Yeah. Like I one vision I had is it was someone specific from my family, and I touched their forehead. They just came into my vision, and I touched their forehead, and then all of a sudden this like massive amount of like dark purple comes flying at me. And and then I just having these sensations, and I'm thinking these things and like all these things. Yeah. And it's like, why would I make that up? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like that to me is part of it. And then also if I see someone in the vision that is just standing there looking at me, like they're not interacting with anything else. They're not interacting with me necessarily. They're not talking. They're just kind of standing there looking at me. That's also kind of a sign for me. I'm like, hi, like, what do you want? And then also hearing words that are not mine, or in my voice, or in a cadence that I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
Because I have a running monologue in my brain. Like, I always can hear my own voice in my brain. Like, if I read something, if I'm thinking something, I know what my voice in my head sounds like. And these are very different. And it's usually like, yes, you could do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like throwing it out there. It's not like,
yeah,
it's almost like they shoved it out there with all their energy. Like, that's what I needed to tell you. That,
yeah,
that sort of thing.
Yeah. The way that you describe it, it makes me think of like question and answer. Like, you're going into a meditation with a question or whatever purpose, and the meditation is giving you the answer.
Yes.
Whether that's coming from the vision or what you hear or who you see. It's providing that for you.
Yeah, very much so. And then kind of getting synchronicities around that. So it kind of validates what it was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I feel I've had a quantum leap since we started this. Because I have been putting into motion what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And it's definitely the meditation. 100%. I think a huge one. I've gotten to the point where I'm making it very much a mindful thing I have to do every day, is to do some sort of meditation. And what I've started doing is I will, before I even get out of bed, I will put on a 10-minute positive meditation, just to set the tone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a positive day, or I might, like I said, think about like that future, that sort of thing, or whatever, before I even get out of bed.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that could make a huge difference. I mean, I don't know if you were doing this before, but I do this regularly. My alarm goes off and I'm stopping it or snoozing it and like waiting another 10-15 minutes anyway. So
yep, absolutely. I am a snoozer for sure. The other thing I would do is I would automatically get on social media or like check email or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So this just stops that.
Yeah.
And then once I get out of bed and I'm getting ready, then I try to do my affirmations. So it's kind of like that double hit.
Yeah.
So I think it's really made a difference. I was listening to our first podcast and I was like, I am not that person. I'm like, who? Like, I'm really like, wow, who is that person?
Yeah.
And I had heard of quantum leaps and I was like, I get it. Like, I guess that makes sense. But I feel like I skipped a bunch of steps to get where I am now. And I can't necessarily explain to you why I feel that.
Yeah.
But I feel that.
If it's happening, it's happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're putting in the work, so why wouldn't you be seeing the results? This is the one thing that I think I know that I need to try to do something different with, so that I can get into the pattern of it. I do the same thing with, like, I get up in the morning, I don't jump on social media or check email or anything. I try to make it so that, and we talked about like our routines previously in a previous episode. And so like I will wait a little while before I get up, but then I'll get up and I'll get myself ready. I'll do my journaling, maybe pull some cards, do any sort of cleansing or clearing that I need to do or whatever. And then I will allow myself to get on social media. However, what I have found this past week, and this past week has been off for so many reasons, but what I have found this past week that I've been doing is staying with like not getting on social media right away, but I'll like play a game on my phone. And I'm like, I don't want to do that either. That would be perfect time for me to do a meditation for 10 minutes.
Yeah, literally 10 minutes. It just sets the tone. I had a thought while you were talking, but go ahead.
It'll come back to you, I'm sure. Yeah, so this is something I want to incorporate more purposefully for myself this week, or all moving forward.
Yeah. Why do you think it didn't click with you before? Because like I said, for me, I just had this expectation and didn't meet the expectation, so therefore it sucked, and why would you do it?
I mean, maybe part of it was expectation. I think more recently, and we were talking about this off air a little bit, I'm learning that maybe I can't visualize things in the way that I thought, in the way that maybe I expect should happen in a meditation.
Yeah.
The visualization piece is a big thing. And up until this point, I have always thought that, yeah, I see it in my mind's eye. I hear people say in my mind's eye, in my mind's eye. I am now realizing what my mind's eye is. That is not what other people see. So, yeah, I think that I just can't visualize. And that kind of creates challenges.
So I didn't know that was a thing either. I personally think I apparently visualize, obviously. And I was talking to a couple of other people about this, and what I've kind of come to realize is it does almost invalidate for people. They feel like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or I'm making it up because I can't see it, or they not sure they're seeing it. And I would recommend is then to use breath work.
Yeah.
With it. So then you're focusing on your breath instead of a visualization, or focus on a particular mantra and saying that mantra.
Yeah.
And that's what's able to bring you back, and not necessarily trying to visualize something, but maybe trying to hear something or feel something.
Yeah. I think that, focusing on some of those other things might be helpful. I haven't ever had, I haven't ever had trouble with like the validation piece. Like if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And if I'm getting something, I'm getting something, but I just don't see it. So it's hard to stay engaged with it when it's not like, I mean, obviously when you're meditating, it's not tangible anyway, but in your mind, it's tangible. It's right there. And so it's hard to stay engaged with it when it's not that way. But I like what you said, because being able to focus on something specific, like a sensation or breath, or, you know, you had mentioned before, like crystals or something, like if I can focus on something that is tangible, then maybe that would make it a little bit easier to engage with.
The crystals, I would definitely add that to a crystal to your meditation, one that is used for channeling or spiritual enhancement, because it can make a huge difference. And it has for me. When I'm trying to do like a big meditation or a journey, I definitely use one, and it has made it significantly different.
Yeah. I'm going to take some of these ideas and put them all together and play with them this week and see.
So meditation can raise your vibration.
Yes.
It can help with mental health. And for me, that's been a huge one. I don't think I've been as calm as I am for a really long time, and feel as grounded as I have in a really long time.
Yeah.
On that note, I did have some things happen that really kind of like, I was like, oh, it brought me back. Like I had all this like momentum, and now this brought me back down to negativity. It filled my cup with negativity again. And I was really kind of distraught over it. And I felt like, oh no, this ruined me. Like I'm back to square one. But I think, one, all the work that I've done, yes, I definitely felt that way, but not 100% back. And also using very much so meditation, the affirmations, some of the like the burning that we talked about in for the severance work, using that this week and hitting that hard. I yesterday and today I'm kind of back at it. Like I feel like I've kind of come back up, raised my vibration back close to where it was before. And I feel kind of confident that it's going to continue. Because I think before, though, this would have sent me. Like I would have just been ruminating and, back to like that keyed up feeling, and it would have lasted for a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the other reasons why these things can be so helpful. It's like, yes, we're raising vibration and connecting to our intuition and connecting to different levels of consciousness and developing these spirituality aspect of it, and all of the things that we talk about. And when faced with something that is challenging or distressing or out of the norm, using these same tools can help us to get back on track quicker than at other times where maybe we wouldn't have gotten back on track at all, or it would have taken so much longer, or they could have affected us in different ways. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And I was mindful to use them. Just be like very active in them. The other thing that meditation can help with is tapping into that feminine energy. I've been researching that for a little bit, and I'm not ready to necessarily talk about the 100%. Yes. But knowing, just so you know, in order to tap into that feminine energy to help with our intuition, you got to meditate. Because it helps turn you inward, which a lot of feminine energy, a lot of the aspect of feminine energy is turning inward and, tapping into the inner self.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a big one. That one, it gives me like almost a visceral reaction when you say that.
I know.
I have this this discomfort, I'll say.
She's like wiggling around right now. She's like, ugh.
Yes, I want us to explore that on the podcast for sure.
Yeah.
I know that you've been in that space and doing a lot of that research, so I see it. I see you.
I see you. Yes. The other thing that it can help with, and we touched briefly, is that it can help with like the healing process, and how that can work is a number of different ways. The big one is that cortisol, decreasing that cortisol. When you have the cortisol, you have inflammation, which causes pain, which causes anxiety, which can feed a lot of diseases. It can cause diabetes. It can cause high blood pressure, all these different things. And so when you're able to reduce that on your own, at your own level, without like medication. Now, you need medication sometimes. I'm not saying do not do that. I'm saying in an adjunct. Or before you feel you need to start it.
Right.
In order to not have to start, is to incorporate this. The other thing is you can use it to spot treat something. Like, let's say you have knee pain, something small. You have knee pain. You can meditate on that knee pain, on it going away, on it healing, asking it what it needs, which sounds silly, but why are you here? Do you have something to tell me? You can meditate on that, and it can decrease that pain. There's been studies that show it will actually decrease pain. So that's another one. Trying to think of how else it can be used in medical. There are suggestions that it's placebo with a lot of this stuff, a lot of like spirituality and meditation and all the stuff that we've already talked about. But if you feel better, you feel better.
Yeah.
So therefore you're going to continue to be better.
Absolutely.
That's not saying that like, oh, because you think your cancer is gone, it's gone. But at least it helps your mindset, that therefore your vibration's higher. So therefore you can like potentially change that.
Right. And it comes back to like how that impacts you. Like you said, it doesn't mean that that thing necessarily is gone, but how you react to it or how you engage with it changes. And that can lead to a better quality of life. So absolutely.
Yeah. So
the other thought that's coming to my mind right now is the intention piece of all of it.
The intention piece, I often have trouble with. Especially when I was first kind of really, really trying to do this, because I'm like, what's my intention? I don't know. Because I didn't have a clear intention. I was kind of wondering, like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I don't know what my goal is with this whole process. I think that would be where you would put like just making it a positivity thing.
Yeah.
Or making it a healing thing, and like taking that from somebody else's suggestion would be beneficial. And then when you do have an intention, then you can start to focus on that.
I have ringing in my ears.
Oh, why? What? Are you getting a download right now?
I'm sorry. I just gave you the strangest look. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay.
Rewind. Okay. I really like what you said about borrowing that from somebody else, because when you don't necessarily know where to start, how to start, what to do, you can do that. And it can, what was coming to me was like, that's how you figure out your path. Because when it feels right, or when it lets you know, yes, this is where you need to be, this is what you want to be doing, this is where this is going to get you, that becomes so much more clear. And when you start to develop that, then you can see, okay, this is where I'm taking this. Originally, when I thought about the intention piece of it, I was thinking about how we talked about affirmations and how sometimes, you know, people can say it but not really mean it. And yes, you want to try to like fake it till you make it. But if you don't believe that it will work, then you can get stuck very easily.
Yeah. So we talked about the, like whenever you're wanting to kind of change your timeline, and like the gratitude piece where you're thinking about something that's already happened and you're grateful for that. That was like last episode, I think, or I don't remember what episode, but anyway, you can use meditation to, in theory, change your timeline. So, and to change how you think about something that happened in the past and make a different future. So that can be an intention that you want to have this possibility happen. Like, our podcast is going to blow up in 6 months. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, meditating on that is supposedly can make it come to fruition.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I think that there's definitely a lot. I want to say I feel like there's a lot of truth to it, but I know that that's like an anecdotal experience type of thing. But that's where some of this stuff comes from too, is like, okay, you have to put your energy into it to get that out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've seen that.
Yeah.
In little ways myself, but yeah. So meditation, you got to do it.
You got to do it.
I know nobody likes it. I mean, I do, but I think you have to start somewhere. Start small. Don't have an expectation. Go on YouTube, or there's apps, I think, even meditation apps.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I would 100% say like what we started with in the beginning with, like, it doesn't have to look one specific type of way. If you're really struggling with sitting down even for 5 minutes, then don't sit down for 5 minutes. Go for a walk, do some yoga, do some coloring, do something that can give you the meditative experience without necessarily having to like completely focus on shutting down your mind.
Yeah. It's The Yielding Warrior, by the way. I told you I was going to remember who it was. Jeff Patterson, The Yielding Warrior. Very good book. Talks about like being able to bring your mind back to things. So therefore it's like very like you could flow with things. So your body just kind of flows, your mind flows, and can just kind of take on any obstacle that comes at it and come at it a different way, or, you know, whatever needs to happen. And it could definitely work. And he does mostly about like Tai Chi and Qigong.
Yeah.
That's kind of how he looks at meditation in much more that way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like it.
That's kind of all I got today.
All right. Okay. So the goal is I'm going to challenge everybody and I'm going to challenge myself.
Okay.
The goal is for us to start a meditation practice. Something small. If it doesn't feel right to just sit for 5 minutes, then don't sit for 5 minutes. Find something to do. I am going to try and complete a 20-minute meditation. Ooh. Because I know I can do at least 15.
You're going big or going home.
I gotta commit to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I like that. And I am going on vacation next week. Mm-hmm. So I am going to try to make it that I continue to do at least my 10-minute morning meditations throughout the whole time.
Okay.
So that's my challenge.
All right. So we'll see how we do with those the next time we meet up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya. Have a good day. All right.
Bye. Bye.